Well, if we're gonna find any ghosts, we better split up.
You're listening to Never Split Up, a horror movie podcast.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Hey everyone, my name's Nolan.
I'm Anthony.
And welcome to the first ever episode of the Never Split Up podcast. We're really excited to start this podcast together. We are two lifelong friends that love talking all things horror movies, and we can't wait to share that with you guys. So first, a little bit about us. Ant, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, Nolan, you can attest to this. I know everyone who knows me, the first thing they'll say about me is, oh, he loves horror. Ever since I was 3, my grandpa showed me Jaws and Salem's Lot. I fell in love with the genre. Then from there, my dad showed me Halloween. My mom showed me Scream. And from then on, I've been a lifelong horror junkie.
Yes, I definitely can. I love horror too since I was a kid, but Anthony definitely... So we've known each other since elementary school, and some of my fondest memories growing up is having sleepovers at your house, Ant, and watching like just the craziest horror movies. I always loved horror, but you, I feel like, took it to the next level for me. So thank you for that. But yeah, some of my earliest memories are... Actually, my earliest is watching the famous Twilight Zone episode, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. I remember I must have been like 3 or 4, and someone was watching it in my home, and that famous jump scare scene, that's probably my earliest memory of really being scared from any sort of like TV show or movie. And then going off that, my first real memories of sitting down and watching horror are, I have an older brother, so he used to show me The Shining, the original Halloween movies, all the classics pretty much. My parents never really limited me to that stuff. They weren't that strict, so I'm grateful for that. I think I turned out all right. So
I didn't know Twilight Zone was your first memory.
Yeah, I remember seeing the gremlin or whatever his name is on the wing, and that jump scare when he opens the curtain, and I was like, yeah, that's... I was 3 or 4, I wanted to say, because
that's the age.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you don't know me, you still know I love horror because I'm pretty much covered in all horror tattoos as well. So there's no getting by horror with me.
Definitely is. So we're thinking we're going to cover like a bunch of different stuff on this podcast. I think we're going to keep it simple to start. So we're going to be doing movie reviews. And our first episode here, we're going to be talking about Smile, which came out this year in the summer.
September 30th, it kicked off spooky season.
Okay, yeah, so end of summer, right? Like to kick off Halloween season. Anthony saw it in theaters. I did not see it in theaters, so that'll be interesting to see like our different perspectives. You've seen it obviously out of the theaters as well, Ant?
I did. I've seen it twice on streaming. It's not on Blu-ray yet, so I'll be buying that as well. Physical copy guy over here. Physical media forever.
Really big into that. I love going over his house, and it's like a library of horror, so that's nice. I recently just watched the movie, so I didn't see it in theaters. I watched it a couple times at home. So it'll be interesting to see if you point anything out that you saw in the theater, like the atmosphere or whatever that I didn't quite capture.
Right.
So yeah, we'll just start with that, and then maybe as we go on with the podcast, we'll branch out and do other things like, different top 10 lists or different like holiday or seasonal stuff. It's really open to whatever. And you as listeners, if you have any suggestions, definitely let us know, and we'll take it into the consideration, because we just love talking about horror movies, and that's why we wanted to start this podcast. And yeah, so let's get into it. Smile. Ant, what are your initial impressions?
Not that I'm assuming people know what we're talking about. Do you want me to give a little synopsis from IMDb before we start, just in case, or you want to just get into it?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's have you read the synopsis. Do you have it pulled up?
Yeah, I'm getting it up right now, just in case. All right, so it came out this year. So it's after witnessing a bizarre, traumatic incident involving a patient, Dr. Rose Cotter starts experiencing frightening occurrences that she can't explain. Rose must confront her troubling past in order to survive and escape her horrifying new reality. And I just want to note that it's the highest grossing horror movie of the year, made over 200 million worldwide on a $17 million budget. That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great to see.
Awesome. So you want to give your thoughts first? Or I'm going to give my quick little overall thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So I absolutely love this movie. I love it so much. I saw it I saw it in a Dolby Cinema opening night, and it wasn't packed, but there were enough people in there. We all got that like sketchy vibe, and I mean, when you watch the movie, you know the sound design is amazing in this movie, from the transitions to the jump scares, just from when she's opening a can of food for the cat. It's crazy. I think when I watched the trailer, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a cheesy, like R-rated version of Truth or Dare," which I would have been fine with. But when you watch the actual movie, it goes to some pretty dark places, and it's a pretty dark and gritty movie with a lot of disturbing imagery. And I would say it has a little bit of The Ring and It Follows, but I think it sits besides them, rather than being an imitator of them, with the execution. So I loved it, and I thought Sosie Bacon, who plays the lead actress in the movie, she is amazing. She's great in this movie. I would give it an. I have a couple little problems with it that we'll get into later, but I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. I love this movie. It's one of my favorites of the year.
Okay, coming out with the rating right away.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect blend of popcorn horror and like disturbing dark
Okay,
horror.
I'm going to save my rating
Okay.
for the end.
I'm actually curious.
So, okay, well, my overall impression was I liked it. I do
Okay.
think that I wish I saw it in Dolby, which, by the way, is probably the best way to see horror, I think. The Dolby Cinema, we live near each other, so we go to the same Dolby Cinema, is amazing. If you have a Dolby Cinema anywhere near you, I recommend it for all horror movies. I saw it at home. I have like a little sound bar, like a Bose sound bar, so I kind of got like what you're talking about. I did like the movie. My first impression was, I mean, right off the gate, the cinematography with all those drone shots and the upside down shots that turn right side up. And my favorite shot, probably in a movie in a while, especially in a horror movie, was that shot of the hospital looking down on the ambulance and then panning up to the office window and then zooming into the office. I thought that was so cool. So that was definitely a highlight for me with the movie. I don't think I loved it as much as you. You seem to really, seems like you're really going to give it a glowing review. I definitely got the Truth or Dare vibes. It Follows, definitely. It definitely took itself more seriously than Truth or Dare,
Which I
which is a
appreciate.
good thing. Yeah, no, definitely. Swing for the fences. I was similar to you. I really didn't have much expectations going in terms of the trailers. First of all, I don't know if you saw much of the marketing campaign. Did you see? I'm a big sports fan. I'm actually a big Mets
I
fan.
did. I know what you're going to say, yeah.
Yeah, did you see the people in the audiences smiling the entire game?
Brilliant marketing campaign.
That was awesome. I mean, it got people. I saw people on Twitter who aren't horror movie fans and are just baseball fans saying, like, what the hell? That's so creepy. Like, why is she doing that? That was really cool. And it got people talking. But yeah, same with you. I thought it was going to be kind of cheesy, just like a fun way to kick off the Halloween season. So I didn't see it in theaters. And then I started getting reviews from people like you and other people I knew saying, you have to see this movie. It blew away my expectations. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. So,
Hyped you up a little bit.
yeah, when we came up for this podcast, we had a few different movies that we wanted to cover. And I'm glad we went with this movie because I hadn't seen it yet. So it gave me an opportunity to watch it a couple times. And it's better than what I initially thought it was going to be. I'm not saying it's not good at all. It is a very good movie, but yeah, I didn't love it. I would say I didn't love it,
Okay.
but yeah, I guess we can go into an in-depth spoiler review. So if anyone
Right.
hasn't seen the movie, I guess now would be the time. Did we cover everything before we get into spoilers?
Yeah, I just want to also say I'm just looking up. Not that it matters; it shouldn't dictate your opinion, but the movie does have a 79% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty awesome for this kind of horror movie, and
Oh,
has a
it's fantastic.
77% for audience rating, which is also for a horror movie in general. It's just pretty great. Not that I mean, form your own opinion, but I think that's pretty noteworthy for a horror movie like this to get those kind of ratings.
Yeah, it's pretty rare on Rotten Tomatoes to have number one a high score for a horror movie, and
Right,
number two to have it pretty equal to the audience score.
right.
So that's pretty cool to see that the audience liked it just as much as the critics. It seems. I would say that's pretty much on par with how much I like the movie. You said like 77%.
Yeah, 79%. So it's pretty
Yeah, I would actually agree with that score. I would think. Again, I'm gonna wait till the end
right.
until we talk about it more, and maybe it'll make me like the movie more. Not that I'm heavily swayed, but this is why we love talking about movies. So, and also, yeah, so Sosie Bacon. I had no idea who she was until I looked her
Yeah,
up. That's awesome.
she's my new crush.
Yeah, yeah, she was good.
She's amazing in the movie.
She's amazing. The whole cast was really well done. Kyle Gallner, who's
He was
you
great.
know starting to have a reputation in the horror movie
He's
genre.
been around in the horror movie genre forever.
Me and my fiance just recently watched the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, so he was in that. So when he came up, I was like, "Oh my god, yeah, I remember this guy."
Yeah, let's get into it because I have some things to
Yeah,
say about the cast.
yeah. So again, we're gonna start getting into spoilers because we really want to do like a deep dive. This is kind of the point of the podcast. Just kind of do a deep dive into these movies, see what we liked, didn't like, what scenes we liked, what things we think were really good or what could be different. So if you want to see the movie without spoilers,
Go
pause
see it.
it, go see it, and then come back and you can listen to the rest. So yeah, here we go. Go ahead, Ant.
I actually want to. What you brought up was with the camera shots and everything. I think that has a lot to do with why I loved it as well because it is pretty similar to the same formula as The Ring, and it follows. I mean, they literally say in the movie like sometimes they only last a week, aka 7 days in The Ring. But I think what sets it apart is the execution. And I wanted the director's name. I think I have it. Yeah, Parker Finn. This is his first feature.
I was gonna say he didn't ring a bell to me, that name.
Yeah, well, actually, it's based off a short film that he directed, and the actress who's in the opening scene, who was also fantastic, the girl who played Laura, she was great in the opening scene. She was the lead in his short film. But I want to say I think it stands with those other movies because of the execution, rather than falling into typical truth or dare, that kind of supernatural horror. So I think that's what sets it apart from the kind of lesser known or liked ones. So I think it's all about the execution in this one because it is. I mean, it has familiar themes to other movies, but I do think it's all about the execution and the lead performance. I mean, without Sosie Bacon, I think this movie falls flat on its face.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off that, the reason it stands apart from movies like Truth or Dare, and some of them, the more, I guess, fun to watch movies,
Right,
but
right.
aren't like,
But once you
is
turn it
the
off,
is the sound design and the execution and the build-ups. I'm not a huge fan of movies that do a bunch of jump scares. I thought they did just enough in this movie.
I agree.
There was two or three that really kind of got me. So
I
they
know
were
which one
done.
got me.
Yeah, they were done really well.
And
Yeah.
there wasn't too many. It wasn't like I love the Conjuring movies, but there wasn't even as many as that. It was the perfect
No.
amount, and the build up was great. I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And just like the overall sense of dread, the more that our main character found out about this, she was calling it a curse a lot of the
Right.
time, the more she was kind of effed. And I liked that.
Yeah, I think even we didn't even talk about that much, but the pre-title sequence really just set the pace for the entire movie because once she brings that patient in that room, you already feel uneasy, and I don't think after that scene, I don't think the rest of the movie really lets up. And talk about opening scenes that right before the title card with the what she does at her face. Whew,
Yeah.
that was a great opening scene. I think after that, we're just following the lead character, and she's just. I mean, for the first 20 minutes, you kind of know is it in her head? Is she remembering this trauma as a kid. I mean, we know it's a curse, but she doesn't. So I think they did a good job with playing with that a little bit too, with the trauma versus the actual curse. So I think, for the first 40 minutes, you're kind of like, oh, is she just, dealing with this trauma, and is it making her mental ability, a little weak? But then it does a good job playing with that. And then once you go to the next couple of jump scares and scenes, like, all right, she's got a curse following her. So I just think it really plays with that kind of stuff very well. And it's not too preachy with the mental health stuff, but it balances both very well.
Yeah, I agree. So I thought, to your point, riding that line of, is what's happening actually a curse? Is it in her head? You kind of figure it's not in her head, but they give you enough to make you question it a little bit. I mean, I was really being observant. I mean, even in that opening scene, maybe this isn't real.
I know. I think that, I don't know if you noticed, but in the opening scene, it's like the halls in her job, it's all like bright and colorful. And then after she slits her throat and you see the blood literally pouring out before we get the transition to the title card. And after the title card, it's more like dark and gloomy colors the rest of the movie. So I love going with the state of her mind.
Yeah,
so I love how he's doing all these things.
Yeah, and again, I think they touched on trauma just in general really well.
Right.
They didn't go too heavy into it.
Yeah, it wasn't throwing it at her face, but it was important to the plot.
Also, just the backtrack, the setting of the movie takes place in New Jersey.
New Jersey. filmed here too. It was filmed in Jersey as well.
Yes, it was filmed here. Apparently, it took place near Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah,
because that's the police department.
Yeah, I think they filmed it around Jersey City, but I think it does take place, in the.
I could tell you the suburbs around Newark don't look like that, but that's okay, unless they were like a couple hours away from Newark. But I thought that was cool. I don't think we said, but we're from Jersey. We are still in New Jersey, so New Jersey represent. So that was cool to see. I actually didn't catch that until the second time around.
Oh, really?
When I saw the license plate on the cop car.
Yeah.
I was like, oh. And then I saw it on the laptop and the Newark Police Department, so that was cool. What do you want to kind of take this almost act by act and kind of do like a synopsis and a review of this movie?
So we did the opening sequence, the beginning, and then, pretty much she's told after that event, she needs to take some time off work because she has a few outbursts at work. By the way, that patient, he's so good when he's like the "you're gonna die" guy. He was creepy as hell. He was so good.
But I felt so bad for him.
I know. In the beginning, he's like, "We're gonna die. You're gonna die. I'm gonna die." I'm like, oh, "This is crazy. This is so good."
Yeah, he was great.
I think we should talk about when she goes home, because I have one of my cons is her Beyonce, not even the character, the actor.
Okay.
Jesse T. Usher, who is also A-Train in The Boys. I think it's a mixture of him and the writing in the movie. I mean, I know he's supposed to be a character. We're like, come on, dude, just believe her. But I think he's so thinly written, and he doesn't do much to overcome that, whereas Kyle Gallner also has a limited amount of screen time, but he does so much with his limited screen time. Like, I felt the chemistry between them. I felt everything. So that's my first con, is just Jesse T. Usher just feels like a subplot and a plot device almost, where it's like, all right, he's the guy who doesn't believe his fiance. Let's move on. I almost feel like she could have lived alone and we could have experienced the same thing without him. So I think he kind of was a throwaway character, and I don't think he did much to overcome that. So that's a little nitpick, but casting-wise, that's my little nitpick.
Okay, yeah, I would say the writing for sure, because they definitely bring him on strong. They bring him in as this supportive fiance who's there for her. I mean, you see her; they go out to dinner with her sister, and he supports her throughout the dinner. And they make it home, and they start to have little tiffs, but then we'll get into it. But by the third act, he's pretty much written off and out of the story. Before the third act, really. And it really just transitions to Joel, who's the detectives,
right? Who
we'll also get into. Who their chemistry is amazing, but I don't really think he got a chance, really,
right?
Because, like you said, he was kind of thrown in there and written off towards the end.
But then again, her sister her sister was only in a couple of scenes, but I felt what she did with her time was much more impactful than what he did with his time. So
I
I think it's
agree.
a little
Yeah,
bit of
maybe
both.
it is for sure. Maybe if they showed or talked about a little bit of their past and how they got
Right.
together, maybe she had some mental health struggles when they first met and they overcome those. That's why he's a little abrasive towards her when she has these anxiety attacks about what's following her. But yeah, I think you hit it when you said it's pretty shallow.
Yeah.
Just the performance and everything. He's kind of just forgetful.
Right. I mean, he's not bad. He's just kind of like there. He's there. That's how I
Yeah.
would describe it. He's just there for a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a shame. But going off that, yeah, we get to the dinner party, and I feel like they did a good job of just showing two sisters who couldn't be more opposite.
Well, they both dealt with their trauma in different ways. I like that. I like that
Yeah,
contrast between the both of them.
yeah, we see that. I mean, a lot gets revealed towards the end of the movie. You pretty much find out
Yes.
everything.
But I love that dinner scene when she's like, I pretty much was saying what she said. I was like, shut the fuck up. And that's what she says, like halfway through the dinner. I'm like, yep.
Yeah, yeah. I think she was invited to her nephew's seventh birthday
Oh,
party.
we'll get to that.
There was emphasis on seventh birthday party, and she forgot about the party, and it was like, the end of the world to this lady, because she's a stay-at-home mom, she's a PTA mom.
Who also complains about having to wake up and drive her kid to school and then come home and do nothing. But she did good. The sister did good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I like that scene because it sets up her dynamic with her family and her fiance. That's the one scene that I thought he did well in.
Mm-hmm.
I like the setup because it shows her relationships and how much of a lack of support she has, which also goes into her mental state. So I like that setup.
Yeah, and we didn't even touch on the flashbacks.
What about when she first comes home before they go to dinner? That was a very creepy scene when she's getting her first of several glasses of wine throughout the movie. And she closes the fridge door and she looks up and she sees Laura. That was a brilliant, it wasn't a jump scare. You just saw the image. I'm like, ooh, that was terrifying.
That to me really set the tone of the movie.
Yes.
The initial scene that you were talking about was great. And the actress who played Laura, Caitlin Stacey, I believe her name is.
Caitlin Stacey.
She's amazing. But that scene really kind of, I said to myself, all right, buckle up because this is the type of movie. It's going to be pretty unsettling. It's going to be creepy. And that was really what set the tone. That was an awesome scene. Yep.
And then talk about sound design. Even when she drops the glass, you're like, whoa. Like, it's it's great. And talk about someone who has limited screen time. She has one scene. I mean, it's a big, like, extravagant scene, but she does a lot in that opening scene.
Oh, yeah. She owned the screen. She was awesome. So, yeah, we didn't even really talk about the flashbacks with her mother.
Okay, that literally opened the movie, yeah.
Yeah, do you want to go into that?
Yeah, so basically, we open the movie and we're assuming that it's our lead. She's a child and she's opening her bedroom door, and her mom looks to be overdosing on something, and she's asking her daughter to call for help. And then we get the flash back to her as an adult, and that's how the movie opens. But then by the end of the movie, we find out that there was a little more going on, and that also goes into our lead's mental state.
I don't think she's speaking. I thought she was dead.
She's not. You're right. She's not speaking.
She wasn't.
Yeah.
So in the opening,
and she does. We find out she was speaking.
Yeah. So in the opening, she's just lying face down or belly down, eyes closed, like you think she's OD'd, and our main character found her mom dead. Yeah. So that's all we know at this point. Right. It's not until later that we found out a little more information. But so they cut to that a couple times throughout the movie. And you can tell that she's definitely dealing with some unresolved trauma, right, which is a theme for pretty much every victim in this movie. Right. So you start to kind of connect the dots with that. I started connecting the dots. Right. Once we got to our second victim, I was like, wait a minute. So yeah, from there, again, another shout out to Kal Penn. He's awesome in this.
New Jersey native as well.
Yep. I think he's from Montclair, which is really cool. So he, again, limited screen time, but he played, his role excellent. He's her boss at the hospital. So she works at a psychiatric wing in a hospital. She's a therapist. She's a doctor, but she calls herself a therapist. I was a little confused by that because
I think in social settings, she probably just said she's a therapist, but I think she's
she would. Even professionally to her clients, I think she would be a psychologist, but that's I guess she can call herself whatever she wants. Yeah, but yeah, he's great.
He is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of New Jersey repping in this movie.
I like to see it, and it's a great movie. Highest grossing horror movie of the year.
Yeah.
So yeah, after this, so we did the kitchen scene, we did the dinner scene. Now, after the dinner, well, do you want to get into? We didn't even mention that she has a pet mustache.
Yeah. So
I love mustache.
Anthony and I are both animal lovers. That'll be a theme throughout this podcast. We're definitely going to talk about the pets in these movies,
yes,
and what happens to them, and if they're done justice. And I felt like Mustache got the short end of the stick.
So you want to get into that scene because that's pretty much the next big scene.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
There's a jump scene that might be the best in the entire movie when she's listening to the recordings of the opening scene with Laura. She's at the computer, she has her headphones on, and she's listening to the recording. She keeps going back, and then out of nowhere, right next to her, you get her mom yelling Rose, her dead mom. That's the first scene that the whole theater. I don't think I've heard that many screams in a while in the theater. That was allowed.
That definitely got me too. That reminded me of the Haunting of Hill House jump scare in the car.
Yes. And the trailers did not give it away, so I definitely appreciate it even more because I even jumped from it, and I'm not a big jumper.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But yeah, after the next big set piece is the party because we find out. I mean, Kal Penn, her boss, tells her, you're going to take a week or 2 weeks paid leave, so she can go to her nephew's birthday party now. And after they go to dinner, she's looking for Mustache, and we can't find Mustache in the house, so blah, blah, blah. She goes to the party, and she's giving her nephew his gift. She's very excited, and he opens the gift, and it's good old Mustache. I have a pro, and this is my second con, and this is also a pro. I have a con and a pro in this scene.
Okay, yeah, you go ahead.
So, I'm sensitive to using animal deaths. I feel like in horror, a lot of animal deaths are just there because it's a checkpoint on a checklist. Like, the family has a dog, it has to get killed. The family has a cat, it has to get killed. I think in most horror movies, it's just a checkpoint on a checklist, especially slashers. But in this movie, I think they could have done that scene a different way. Maybe have her see something, go into hysterics, rather than using the cat as a plot device. But I will say, after her nephew picked up Mustache and we see the horrified look on everybody but on Rose, she literally is like, how did this happen? Oh no. You can see the terror and emotion in her face. And I think if you're going to use an animal death in a movie, I think this movie did it with purpose, even though I think they could have went a different direction with that scene at the party and still had the same effect. I do think that they did it well, even though I wish they didn't do it.
Okay, yeah, and that comes back to like me saying that I think Mustache got the short end of the stick.
He did.
They kind of did use him to, yeah, yeah. It was definitely done, and it definitely succeeded in progressing the movie because after that scene, I mean, I was saying to myself, why isn't she being admitted to a hospital? I mean, she had a complete breakdown in front of an entire party of people who were just mortified. There's also another scene a little bit later on where it shows her nephew watching her have a breakdown in her car. And I thought they were going to use that towards the end of the movie with this whole theme of trauma, with him kind of getting the curse at the end. They kind of didn't use that. And I mean, maybe in a future installment, if we get one, they're going to explore that more. But
were you a fan of that scene with the cat? Yeah.
I was, yeah, because once he started opening the wrapping paper, I knew something was wrong. And then I said, what could it be? And I said, this box looks like a Mustache box. And I was unfortunately right, because the last time you see her wrapping the it's supposed to be a train set, like a model train set or
Right.
electric train. She doesn't finish wrapping the present. And that's
Right.
when she has
Oh,
one
that's
of her-
actually that scene when the alarm goes off. When the alarm
When the
goes off,
alarm
we heard
goes
about
off.
that too.
and
That
the
was a
back
great
door
scene.
opens. That was a great scene. She's holding the scissors in her hand.
Right. That's when
The
Mustache goes missing.
Alarm company calls her, and it turns out it's not the alarm company. It's
Right.
actually the thing.
I love that sequence.
Yeah, so she never finishes the wrapping. So I assume that during that sequence, she found Mustache, because you assume he's dead at that point because he'd been missing
Right.
for some time. And then she just wrapped him up, and it was well done. I agree. I hate to see it, but it was well done.
I don't love what happened to Mustache, but I will say that also because at that point in the movie, we didn't get too much curse stuff yet. So it also playing with us like, did she actually kill her cat, and is she having a mental breakdown, or did this curse kill the cat, and then she just was still out of it and just found him in
Yeah.
her trauma, and she's like, oh, let me wrap him up to keep him. I think that they still played both cards very close to their chest at that point. That's why
that's a good point.
I give that scene a pass. Not that I want it to happen. I think they could have done that in a different way, but I think that it's still like that was smart, because in that
Yeah.
scene when she's like, holy, she's like, I don't know what happened to him. She's terrified. So I think that's still playing with us.
I assume it was just because it was during one of her episodes.
Right.
But yeah, to your point, I didn't even think about that. It could have been this entity who killed Mustache and then wrapped him up without her
Right.
doing anything while she was like somewhere else. But
then
that
when
brings
she
into
sees-
question how much can this, I mean, I'm calling it an entity because I don't think it has a name. We never got a name or anything.
Right, which I do also like that we don't find out too much about.
Yes. How much can it interact with the world, right?
Right.
I mean, it can obviously take control of the people it's cursing, and we find that out later on, but can it
Right.
interact with other things in the world? Because this thing can only be seen by the person it's being cursed by, or the person
Right.
that it's cursing, I should say. So that brings that into question as well. I didn't even really think about that.
Well, now even you saying that even makes me love the movie more, because we know the curse feeds off people who are in a traumatic state of mind. It loves that. So I think you saying all that, it's like we don't even know what she's seeing. Is it in her head, or is the curse doing all of it? Is the curse doing some of it, and is it her imagination doing the rest? So I love, there's a lot of questions that aren't answered, but we obviously know in the end it is a curse, but we don't know how much of it was in her head or was the curse. So I kind of love that.
You can really go down the rabbit hole and say, does this thing like premeditate its
Right.
victims, and did it cause the trauma when she was a kid? I mean, you can really get deep
Right.
into the weeds with this.
Because we don't know how far it goes back and back and back.
And we don't know. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of, especially horror movie sequels, struggle for me, because they tend to over explain things. And the reason that the initial movie is so well received is because it doesn't lay it all
Right.
out there. And that's what makes it creepy. So I hope if they do another one, they don't give us everything, because it's really hard to pull off and still kind of keep that tone.
Right. I also love that, right after she finds Mustache, when she falls into the table, and this is another credit to Sosie Bacon, when her arms are sliced up, and she
That was brutal.
lets out that like blood curdling scream. I'm like, wow, I get chills at that scene. So then after that, she does go to the hospital, and this is when I really, really start wishing. I'm like, Jesse T. Usher comes back, and he's like, to his credit, he's like, "Did you kill Mustache? What the hell?" But I just, I thought that scene, it's just like I was so over his character by that point. So after that, that's pretty much his last scene in the movie. He has one more scene with the therapist, but after that, he's gone. So after Mustache, that's like the catalyst where it gets really hardcore, takes a turn into the actual curse stuff.
Well, I think when she's released from the ER, that was when her and her fiance Trevor
Have that discussion.
have that discussion, and he's asking about her family history and stuff. And she's
Right.
like, "How dare you?"
And in the very aggressive way when she's in that state of mind.
Yes, and
Like,
then
what the hell, dude?
that's actually not the last time you see him. She brings her
therapist,
therapist over to the house, so we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, that comes
She
out.
also-
that comes. Yeah.
Yeah, so she also, over the course of the movie, you find out that she was in therapy for mostly from her trauma from her mother. She stopped going. We don't know the timeline, but
Right.
she's looking to kind of
She
get
wants to be back on
answers.
her meds.
Yeah, she wants to go back, or I don't think she was ever really on, because those are, I think those are for like schizophrenia and stuff. The meds she was requesting, so I don't.
She's self-diagnosing. That's what's happening because she's a doctor. She's self-diagnosing herself.
Her therapist is saying, let's not do that.
Right. We'll talk in a week.
Yeah. So that's really the last time we see her fiance Trevor. He
Right.
brings the therapist over, kind of ambushes her, which is pretty fucked up thing to do, because she had just confided in him and really like laid it all out there and said, listen, I love you. You have to believe me. And nobody, I mean, at least me, I'm not expecting Trevor to just like drop everything and believe her at this point. And that's not what we're saying.
But he's not supporting her either.
He's just kind of being totally dismissive. Bringing up her family history was totally not the right time or place to do that. And then ambushing her with the therapist was like kind of the last straw for me. I was like, all right, this guy's kind of a piece of shit. So,
and that's where like the cardboard cutout character from me comes in, where like they literally just needed a character not to believe her with no substance, and that's why I kind of am still iffy on that performance and character, and the writing, and for the character, it's mostly the writing, but he didn't do much to help. But yeah, he was, we're meant to not like him.
Yes, definitely.
So then she starts investigating more, and then we get to. Then she interacts with Joel more. She goes to Joel. He's the one who actually starts giving insight into the past deaths with the footage. When she goes to him for help, we see a death.
I thought Joel was honestly might have been my favorite character. Again, he got very limited screen time. I would have liked to see more of him, especially towards the climax of the movie. But yeah, he was awesome. Their chemistry was great, and
I thought he was great. I thought that when she went to him for help, when he showed her the footage, that was also a cool little
the footage
sequence at the gas station when the guy stabbed himself.
The CCTV footage. That is the most high definition CCTV footage I've ever seen. You'd never see that in real life. I thought that was kind of funny. I was like, really? How did they get this high quality movie studio level CCTV footage?
We need that set piece.
Yeah.
No, he was great. They were both my favorite. Obviously, she was amazing, but he was a great supporting character. He supported her well.
So that was when they started, at least when she started connecting the dots. She was kind of keeping him in the dark still, but she made him look up the incident reports of the previous victims, and there seemed to be a pattern. So the pattern was up to a week before all of these people died, they witnessed their suicide. And it was like a chain of suicides. So every time there was a witness, that witness then died by suicide.
Right.
And then you find out, and this was also one of my favorite scenes and a highlight of the movie. They find out that there was one person who lived, and the reason he lived was because he murdered somebody.
And somebody else watched him.
And somebody else watched the murder, so it passed to that person. So we visit him in the prison. Her and Joel take a ride up to the prison, and that scene is amazing.
I want to know his name because he was great in that scene. Just give him a little shout out.
Rob Morgan, his name is?
Yes. He was great.
He was awesome.
In his little cameo.
Again, this movie is full of amazing blood-curdling screams between him.
His was another one.
And we didn't even talk about Mrs. Munoz when she freaks out at the end, when she kicks her out of her house. We kind of didn't discuss that, but that was the wife of another victim.
Is she from Scrubs?
I think so.
Yeah, she was great. She was good, and she had a good scream too when she yelled at her.
Yeah. But yeah, that scene was amazing. You didn't get like a whole lot of information from him because you kind of already pieced it together by that point. Like the reason he's alive is because he killed somebody.
Right, that's the big explanation that you have. If you want to live, you pretty much have to pass on to somebody else by murdering someone and having the next person watch you murder somebody, which is also another similarity to The Ring, where it's like if you want to live, you have to show someone a copy. But this is a little twist on that. But so I think, but that's fine. They're similar, but I think the execution in this, again, makes it stand out.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty brutal because in order to live, you have to kill somebody, you have to have a
Right.
witness, and that pretty much makes it so you're probably going to jail. you know,
Right.
like because there's a witness.
Right.
They're gonna find you. I don't know a good way to kind of skate around that. I mean, it's either murder or you take your own life. I mean,
Or you have to
that's
do
pretty
which,
dark.
I mean, we'll get to it, but you have to, at the end, but you have to isolate yourself and make sure that the curse doesn't play tricks on you.
Yeah, so we're now getting into, I guess, the third act where she
Right.
makes a realization that she can maybe starve this thing. I guess the proper term is. I forget
Right.
what she uses in the movie, but it's almost like deprive it of an audience. So she wants
Right.
to isolate herself. So she ends up driving to the abandoned house that they grew up
But
in.
before that, I have one of my favorite scenes in the movie when
Oh,
she's
God.
contemplating killing somebody, her patient, and she
Oh,
goes
yeah.
back to the hospital.
Yeah.
That scene when we saw the scene in the theater, everyone was like, "What the hell is this? What is happening?"
That's
So she
hilarious.
goes,
Yeah.
yeah, she goes back to the hospital, and we assume she's going in, and she's going up to the patient from the beginning who was yelling, "You're gonna die! You're gonna die!" I think his name's Carl in the movie. And she's like, "Carl, shut up!" She just starts stabbing him, and then Cal Penn comes in, and then she literally just goes at it because Cal Penn's supposedly watching her murder this guy, and then Carl just starts laughing when she's stabbing him, and then Cal Penn literally rips his face off, and then we find out she's having a little daydream. I thought that was crazy. I did not expect Cal Penn to rip his face off. That scene.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. So that goes back to you seeing it in a theater. That sounds like a really cool movie theater moment,
It was
especially everyone reacting. For me, being alone, I didn't like the scene really at all.
really
I thought it kind of was too. It didn't fit with the overall tone.
you thought it was over the top
It
for the
was
movie.
very over the top. It didn't fit with the tone. I knew it wasn't happening when it was happening because it just was
Right,
so
right.
unbelievable. For
I think once she stabbed him like the third time, you're like, okay, something's kooky going on. But I think that was a scene that I could see. Not that I know this happened, but I could see the director getting a note saying, "Hey, make a scene that's going to make the audience go whoa," and like have a collective gasp.
yeah, I see what
It
they were
worked for
going
me.
for.
It worked for
It
me.
was a
Yeah.
fun scene, but
Yes.
again, this movie took itself very seriously. So I
Yes.
would have liked to see something different. They could have done a dream sequence a little differently, and they could have been just as good. But yeah, that's the difference. That's why you go see horror movies with an audience, and go see
Right.
them in theaters.
So yeah, after that, she's like realizes I can't do this. I can't kill somebody. Then she's on the phone with Joel, Kyle Gallner, and she's like, I think she does say something like, "I have to starve it, or I know how to
Yeah,
buy
she tells
time," or
Joel that
whatever.
she has to be alone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
She's like, "I know how to buy time. I have to be alone." And he's like, "What are you gonna do? Stay alone forever?" Pretty much. She's like, hangs up, and she goes to her childhood home, and she pretty much barricades herself in there.
well, yeah, I love how Joel pretty much calls her out right away. Like, what's
Right.
your grand plan?
Right.
Like, she really
Right.
didn't have a plan. It just kind of
While
popped in her
also
head.
showing
like,
he cares about her, and he's like, "I'm
Exactly.
gonna come with you." Like he wants to help. You can tell he just wants to help.
Yep. Yeah, so we get to the childhood home, which is a fucking wreck. I mean, this home is like The Walking Dead, like 20 years later.
It would only go for about $400,000 today.
Yeah. I don't know how it's still standing, but it was kind of the set design was a little weird to me, a little strange. Like the kitchen was gutted, but it still had mattresses. Like I guess it was pretty well done. It was pretty creepy overall, like the long hallway.
Right.
I thought they could have did a little bit more with just her stalking the house, especially at nighttime. They kind of
You wanted
left
you want it to be a little longer, that scene, you mean?
little longer. I wanted maybe
Okay.
like not necessarily a jump scare, but kind of set the tone a little bit before shit hits the fan.
Okay.
We have the big reveal, the final flashback scene.
Right. So that's kind of the build up when she opens the door. She sees her mom, And then we get the reveal from the beginning of the movie what actually happened when her mom died.
Yeah, the reveal. So her mom basically isn't dead yet. We think
Right.
she's dead until this scene, and you realize she's actively overdosing. I guess that's the right term.
Oh, yeah, she obviously took something or did something.
But she's still lucid, and she reaches out for her daughter and says, like, "Mommy messed up." You know, her daughter's about, I think she's 10 at this point.
Yeah, she's young. She's young.
So she's young, but she knows how to, call the 911.
Right,
and all
right,
that.
right.
So her mom says, "Please call help. Call for help. Mommy needs help." And she basically says no. She
Right.
says no and runs away and slams the door.
I will say, I love, again, Sosie Bacon. So when we cut back to Sosie Bacon being in the house now and talking to her mom, we know it's not her mom, but she's talking to her and she's pretty much saying, you scared me. It's not my fault. I know you needed help, but I was just a kid. It wasn't fair. I love that interaction, which also feeds into the trauma of the movie. I thought they did that really well when she's pretty much like, you scare me. I know it's wrong that I did that, but I was a kid and I didn't know what to do and you needed help, blah, blah, blah. I thought that was a very good, a little emotional scene for the main character.
Yeah, so that wasn't a flashback. At that point, the creature
Right,
that's
she's
haunting her
right,
manifests itself into her mother, and
Right.
that's how she was able to have that conversation. And
right,
you think the movie is going one way, like, all right, she's embracing
right.
this trauma and
right.
defeating the guilt, and maybe by having a more open and clear mind, she can now defeat this thing that's haunting her because it
Right.
feeds off trauma. We find out that that's not the case. So, yeah. So
So then they have their little brawl pretty much in the house. And then we think that, actually, first of all, let's talk about the creature design. Amazing. Practical.
Yes.
It is practical. And I saw an interview with the director, and the creature's like super tall. The way they filmed it, they used a tiny hallway.
So, you, I guess, researched more about this. Was that creature that opened the door supposed to be a taller, more masculine version of her mother?
I think
Because
subconsciously
it resembled her mom in a way.
I think subconsciously it was supposed to be Rose's
Okay.
mom, but they never like full out state that because it was also a mixture of because it eventually morphs into the actual creature by the end of the movie.
Yeah, because it morphs, but it's still wearing a mask.
Right. Well, I would say that that's the intended effect,
Okay.
but not spelt out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the impression I got. But yeah, they have the brawl, and
And she pretty much is what I forget her line because we also think again that she defeats it. He's like, I love your mind. And she's like, well, it's my mind, so I control it. And she pretty much,
yeah, I think he
Rid of
says
him
something
for a minute.
like, "You can't escape your mind."
right.
She says she kind of rebuttals, and she finds the kerosene lamp that's on
Yes.
fire next to her, and says, "It's my mind. You can't escape it either." And she throws the lamp on her, and another great sound effects,
Transition
sound design.
too. Yeah.
The scream was like super demonic, and it sounded like a creature. It was
Right.
really cool. You see the skin kind of burn away, and it's now just like this all meat and bones, and it's like screaming while it's on fire. So yeah, boom, she saves the day. She defeats the monster, and
She
she
goes to see
escapes the
Joel.
house. She turns around to watch her home burn to the ground, and that's it. The monster's dead, right? I mean, everything's great.
Right.
No, not so great. She goes to Joel's house.
And she's pretty much, she apologizes to him. She's pretty much saying, I was shitty to you in the past. It's not your fault, And then she asks him, and she's like, can I stay here? And can you watch me? And I love this scene. Kyle Gallner is so good. He's like, yeah, you can stay here. He's like, forever. And then we find out that obviously she didn't escape the demon and she's still at the house. And then we get the reveal that Kyle Gallner did track her down. And then it's really like, oh shit, because there's someone there to watch her die. So there's a way for the curse to pass on.
So now
I
that
love that
we
scene.
know
I love that.
the curse is still active, Joel is the character. He's now
Joel.
at the scene, and she freaks out. She runs back
A
into the
great
house, locks
moment.
the door, and is panicking. And then the creature comes back out. And this is the big reveal, which I'll let you talk about it first. How you liked it?
So when I first saw the imagery of this, I wasn't sure how I felt. But then as the scene went on, I'm like, this is friggin' crazy. I love it. So Joel breaks into the house. No, not before Joel breaks in the house. She pretty much, we find out she goes back in the house to lock herself in so Joel can't get to her. But the creature, overpowers her and takes control of her by literally going inside her. So the creature stretches out her mouth, goes inside her, and we have it's a good visual. I didn't know how I felt about it at first, but the longer it went on, I'm like, this is wacky. I love it. I don't know how you felt about it.
Oh, it was great. So he basically peels the mask away, and you see
Yes.
this long face of muscle, and it's got like 4 or 5 rows of smiling mouths. And
So good.
it was pretty cool. It kind of reminded me of a little of like cosmic horror in a way, like almost like Annihilation. Or,
Yes.
because like you didn't know what to look at. It was kind of all there. And the sound design in that scene was
Right.
amazing. And so then he basically takes, saying he, but it's just a creature, takes control of her and kind of pulls her mouth
Open, yeah.
elongated,
Back,
like
yeah.
almost like a cartoon, and crawls inside of her mouth. And the profile shot of him climbing into her mouth, the zoomed out shot, what I thought was
Right.
really cool, that would make like a good poster, was awesome. And so at the same time, Joel breaks down the door, and you just know he's pretty much fucked at this point. There's no trace of her in the room that we just saw her in. And yeah, take it away. You can explain the next scene.
So Joel goes into the room, and she's facing the corner almost, kind of like got a little bit of Blair Witch vibe. She's like in the corner, not facing him, but we see she's holding a can of gasoline over her head, and you just know that the gasoline's on her, and she's gonna turn around. So she turns around and she's smiling,
Of course.
and she sets herself on fire, and we get this brilliant shot where we don't see her in person on fire, but we zoom into Joel's eye.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see her ablaze, and then the movie ends. No, obviously, Joel watches her die, and the curse is passed on to him. And you know how I love myself a dark ending, and that was a nice, dark, unhappy ending.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely dark.
I showed my parents it, and they were like, "Oh, I just wanted it to have a happy ending." I'm like, "No, I love
Well,
this dark ending."
it kind of flips, everything on its head, because normally
Yes.
in these types of movies, even if you don't get a happy ending, you at least get some progress in terms of like how to defeat the thing or
Right,
whatever. And
like The Ring.
yeah, exactly. But it's just dark because after it cuts to black and the movie ends that Joel is fucked. I mean, he has a little bit of a
Right.
head start.
And our lead is dead.
Our lead is dead.
Right, our heroine of the movie is dead.
And you know that the next guy in line, I mean, he has kind of a head start on what this thing is because he knows the pattern, but
Right.
he really doesn't know how to defeat this thing unless he just goes and murders somebody. But, it's very dark. Yeah.
That guy, I love it. So on one hand, obviously I was rooting for her. She's my favorite part of the movie. But on the other hand, I was like, there's no other way this movie could have ended. It had to have that dark punch, that gut punch at the end.
Well, yeah, I mean, they definitely could have ended it with a happy ending because of the whole trauma and overcoming trauma and
Right.
kind of breaking free.
Right.
I thought it was going to be a big allegory to that, and kind of
Right.
that's
But
the
I
way
feel
to
like they
defeat
still-
the curse.
That's why I love that scene in the house when she's confronting her mom, because she's still kind of, the happy part about it was she was able to confront and leave behind her trauma before she was murdered.
Yeah, and it didn't make a difference, and that's the dark part.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
exactly. That's why I love the dark part. But yeah, I'm a fan of the dark ending. Obviously, if we had a sequel, I would have loved to have it with Sosie Bacon, but it looks like I'd be down for one with Kyle Gallner.
well, I mean, it's now past to Joel, so if it goes to Joel in the
right,
next
that's what I'm
movie,
saying.
it could have Sosie Bacon smiling at Joel throughout the movie.
Right. She can do a couple cameo scenes. But yeah, I love the ending, and now even talking to you about it more, yeah, I adore this movie. It's gonna be
Yeah. So
on my
what was
top.
your score? I guess we'll do like our overall
I'm
ratings.
gonna stick with. I'm gonna stick with. I mean, it's a great rating, but I'm gonna stick with my 8.5.
Yeah, that is
And the
great.
only things that bring it down is the Jesse T. Usher character and the little plot devices. Like I said, I'm mixed on the cat scene and little things here and there. But overall, I love the movie.
Okay.
8.5 out of 10. I mean, that's great.
I'm probably going to tend to be a little on the critical side with my scores just because I plan on us reviewing a bunch of movies and I don't want to like kind of
Yes.
get a bunch of movies stacked up. So I'll go with like kind of figure skating scores. I'll give it like a. It was good. I definitely liked it. Talking with you and doing like a full review definitely gave me a clearer picture. I will give it a 7.4. So
Okay,
still,
that's above
yeah,
average. That's
definitely
good.
above
That's
average.
really
Yeah.
good, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
really
I was
good.
definitely surprised. Like I said, I thought I didn't have much hopes for it. I was glad it was killing it at the box office. Just as a horror fan,
Yeah,
anytime a horror movie succeeds, whether I like it or not, I am thrilled.
I agree.
So that was awesome. How does it rank just in general? Like over the past, like since COVID, it's got to be up there in terms of horror over the last few years because it did make a killing. I know Halloween Kills made a
I
lot.
think it might be the highest grossing horror movie since COVID.
Yeah,
Just because
I'd have to
Halloween,
look
like
up.
the Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends were available on streaming, so that kind of killed the box office. I don't even want to get into that conversation, but that really hurt the box office for those movies. But I think Smile is the highest grossing since before COVID. I think maybe since It Chapter 2, it might be the highest grossing horror movie.
Yeah, so we can do a whole nother episode about horror releases and going straight to
Yeah.
streaming and stuff. And but I thought it was
Oh
great
yeah,
that it went right to movies and only movies and stuck there for a while. It's great to see.
yeah, it just started streaming, I think, recently, so they made it stay in movies throughout the whole Halloween season, which
Yeah,
is what you should do.
it was a great kickoff to spooky season. And if you guys hung around and didn't care about spoilers and still haven't seen the movie, I would still recommend it. Even though we kind of went through most of the movie, it's still, like I said, the cinematography, the sound design, the acting,
Performances.
the performances are just
The
top notch.
direction, everything.
Top
Yeah.
notch, definitely.
It's a high quality horror movie that I'm thankful was released in theaters by a major studio.
Definitely a good quality movie for us to start our podcast with.
Yeah, that was a good choice on your part.
So
Do you want to think about what you want to announce or brainstorm what you want to do next time, or you want to do that off air?
yeah, so I think we'll probably post that on Twitter and let people know.
Okay.
So our Twitter is at Never Split Up Pod. You can follow us on Twitter at Never Split Up Pod, and we'll make the announcements there. Maybe going forward, we can have a better plan and we can announce the next movie at the end of the episode. But right now, I don't
Yes.
think we have that nailed down. So we'll announce that
No,
on
yeah,
Twitter.
no. It would take another 20 minutes if we were trying to decide that now.
So I guess the last thing in terms of Smile is, I mean, we're called the Never Split Up podcast. Did they split up? Were there any scenes where you're like, no, don't? I really didn't think so. The only time was when she refused to tell Joel, but I thought it was the right call.
Yeah, I kind of supported her decision making throughout the entire movie. She's a smart character.
Yeah, I mean, you're mostly going to see those in slashers, and slasher is one of my
Right.
favorite subcategories of horror, and I know it's yours too. So that's where the name comes from. People always splitting up when they shouldn't. We'll kind of give that at the end of each movie, just because it's fun.
I think my one oh no would have been to Joel's a better guy than me. I would have been like, hell no, don't go in that house.
Oh yeah,
At the end of the movie.
yeah. Well, I mean, by that point, you knew they had the history and that he loved her, and he was just
Yep.
a good guy.
Yeah.
He
He
was
was.
just a good guy, and that's what gets you killed in horror movies, being a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that wraps up the first ever episode of the Never Split Up podcast. On behalf of Anthony, I'm Nolan, and thanks so much for listening. See you later, guys.
All right, have a good one, guys.